going.
Yeah.
Is this mine? Did you get?
I think it's yours.
I am ready.
Good evening. This is the City Sunbury Services Committee meeting for October 4th, 2023. Could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Capel.
Here.
Mayor St. John.
Here.
Mr. Neff.
Here.
Mrs. Cooper.
Here.
We have 4 present. We have a quorum.
I'm going to move to review the minutes from the September 6th meeting. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Neff. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Capel.
Yes.
Mr. Neff.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mayor St. John.
Yes.
4 yeas.
All right, we don't have anybody in the visitor section tonight. So we will go into new and unfinished business, service department staffing. There's been some
All right.
moving and shaking over there.
Yeah, we have had some movement. So I just wanted to brief the committee on where we are. I did send out to the council members earlier this week that our service supervisor, Adam Wrinkle, will be leaving us here soon, taking a position in another municipality. But since that time, but in the last couple of weeks, we have been able to hire 2 additional full-time employees. One of those has a CDL, which is good and important. The other one does not, but the other one comes with some mechanical expertise. So what that does is the second of those employees will arrive on Monday. So what that does is it gives us 4 full-time permanent positions over at the service department. We will immediately we have started the search for the service superintendent. We will post that search later this week. Once that position is back in place, we'll then have 5 full-time positions. What I did want to note is we've budgeted for 7. We will continue, I think, to look to supplement that staff with full-time employees. But one of the strategies I think we have for this year is to maybe add some seasonal folks as well through the leaf season and through the snow season. Other municipalities have done that as well. We may be able to find ourselves some individuals with skill sets that are what we need in order to tackle the snow that we might be encountering this winter. We're also considering other options, want to make sure that we're ready to address the snow season. But given the current employees of the 4 employees the 4 full-time employees that we have on staff, 2 of them do have CDLs. So we do have 2 CDL trucks. But obviously we want to try to supplement that if we can, but that's at least our current baseline. So that's where we are with service.
Did you say how many trucks we have that you need CDLs to drive?
2.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're the large Western Star. I don't know if you've seen those
Yeah,
or
I've
not.
seen those.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
biggest ones, they look like the ODOT trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen those.
yeah.
Okay.
Does the seasonal help just come in like during a snowstorm or?
No. We'll kind of like we did with our summer seasonal employees. I mean, the idea is they'll be 40 hours per week, but during a limited period of time. I mean, a seasonal employee isn't eligible for the benefits. The city's other benefits. But I will say, as we've been interviewing some individuals for the full-time positions, I think we had identified a couple that might be suited for that kind of a part-time role. So we'll be reaching back out to that group. I'm confident we'll be able to add a couple of, I think, strong individuals that are only looking for kind of that seasonal opportunity, because they may have lawn care businesses or whatever that kind of, that they're trying to supplement in the winter a little bit, if you will. So anyway, yeah, so we have had some movement here, but I just wanted to give folks a sense of where we are.
Worst case scenario, if we don't fill these positions or don't get seasonal help, what kind of shape does that leave us in going into winter?
No, it'll be tight. So we definitely need to add some talent to that group for the winter.
What
I mean,
about,
we were fortunate last year when we were starting to transition the service team. It was later in the winter season, and we didn't encounter any significant snowstorms that would have been impacted by what was happening with the service team. One other thing we did last year, and I've talked to the administrator over in Berkshire Township. We did enter into a kind of a side agreement as it related to a couple of roads that were shared between the township and the city. He's indicated a willingness to do that again this year. I tried to push him to go just a little bit farther. It's a new administrator over there, so he's a little uncomfortable, I think, in terms of offering up too much more assistance beyond that. But anyway.
Is there like kind of a plan if we can't get the people in play before winter, like some sort of backup
Yeah, I mean,
hired out or something?
yeah, that's actually the option I was talking to the township administrator a little bit about as well. I mean, even if we got into an arrangement where, I mean, they finished their work, could they be on call for us at that particular point to come in? So, and that could work. I mean, you know, every snowstorm's a little bit different. So, but I mean, that could work with our team kind of fully engaged initially to kind of deal with the storm, and then having kind of the supplemental crew later on to do some cleanup work or what have you. But again, I'm not there yet with them. So that's
Is
one
it
option.
possible any of our part-time summer employees would be interested in coming back for seasonal, or are they mostly going to college?
That group is mostly in college.
We'll learn how to drive snowplow. We'll do it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Sounds fun to me. So
The keys.
my other question with this is management oversight.
Mhm.
So are you directly overseeing the streets department then while after he's gone?
Yeah, I mean, that's
How's that gonna work?
that's the way we did it when we transitioned before. I mean, Steve did it initially, and then when Steve left, I was in that role. You know, hopefully we can keep this to a short vacancy. Again, I think we do have a little bit of a leg up on this process. We've got the position description, we've got the posting, and, you know, we even had a few names, you know, that may be in the pool. So, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it plays itself out.
Yeah. Okay. And then we've got 2023 street program update.
All right, so for the group, I did ask our service supervisor, Adam, to give me an update on where we are. So as you know, South Miller Drive, the base course and intermediate course have been laid, are all laid yesterday. The top coat is going in now. It actually has originally, I think I'd indicated, Strasser had told me it was going to be a 3-day process, 1 day to mill, 2 days to pave. Clearly, it's taking them longer to pave it than 2 days. The response I'm getting back is because we've got a window that we've told them not to start until 8:30 and to be done around 2:30. And so the window has affected their ability to quote, get it all done in that 2-day window. But anyway, so the note is that they should be finishing up the top coat tomorrow, October 5th. Then we'll have the pavement striping, not yet scheduled, but you know, the subcontractor, they do have a subcontractor to basically perform that service, and the contract with Strasser has substantial completion occurring next Friday. So so that's the window of time in which we would anticipate the striping company to be in here. We'll monitor that. There are also traffic loops on South Miller at Heartland Meadows and at 3C Highway. They've been ordered by MP Dory. They're waiting. The loops have not yet arrived, but they've been ordered. They do have the subcontractor to do the installation on that, so we'll monitor that. But also related to that, we are upgrading the intersection at Miller and Cherry as you approach, or as you're headed north, I guess, on the southern leg of Miller Drive. As you approach that intersection, that was not on radar. We have purchased the equipment to add a radar there. The equipment has arrived. The wires have been in place, and the radar detection, again, the MP Dory will be installing that, they say, tomorrow. And then the final thing I would note is that we do anticipate 2 asphalt patches on Letts Avenue. You may remember those were part of a sanitary sewer repair last year. Decker Construction in to do that. Actually, they indicated they would be in today. I didn't check to see if they were in today, but they'll be in this week, if not today. And then I should say one final thing. So our inspector at DLZ, the on-site inspector has indicated that he will develop a punch list of items that need to be fixed and have that ready by the end of the week. So if you are hearing things and want to send me, I've heard a couple of comments already. I know as I've heard things from residents, I've given that list to DLZ to put on their punch list, but yeah, if you hear anything else, let me know. All right, so that's the 2023 street program.
Can I jump in there?
Absolutely.
I did have a chance to talk to Mr. Hennessy about this before the meeting, but I had a couple questions for Dan on the Cape Seal in particular. I have had a couple of resident concerns, complaints about the particular product. I think they live on Chipmunk. I've driven through there after it was initially with a final coat, I guess is what I would call it. I didn't like spend a whole lot of time over there, but tonight before this meeting, I did just to see what concerns were being brought up. I think one of the things the residents are calling out is with the lag in time between laying the gravel and the different coats of things. I can't remember how long it took, but it seemed like it was maybe a 5-day period. Does that sound about right? 3 days? Okay, 3-day period.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
longer
I
than
think it
2.
might have been 2.
I'm saying it should be.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was 3 days.
Okay.
I think it was. Yeah.
But in between that time, cars are driving on it and affecting kind of well, I don't know what you call it, the glue layer, the stuff that like all the chip is adhering to.
Yeah.
And then affecting, the way that, that final coat goes on. So I think the concern is, yeah, it's great. We save money. I mean, these are taxpayers that are bringing this up. It's great that we went with a less expensive option, but, in the overall value statement, what do we do? This person actually addressed the contractors and said, hey, there's issues here, and they basically got dismissed. I don't think they brought it up to city staff. So I'm sorry, I'm catching you off guard with this. One of the questions they had was, is there another level to this product for future years where basically like they can steamroll, in between layers or at the final layer? It seems to me like based on what I saw, like that could have probably addressed some of this. Does that happen?
I'm not an expert at it, but I know enough to know that I understand exactly what you're talking about, and there are processes, procedures to avoid that. I can't tell you exactly what they are, but I guess I'm not surprised, and it needs to be watched carefully because it can make a mess of your vehicles and other things. So I'll look into it a little bit, and if we decide to do Cape Sealing next year, I'll look into it anyway, so we'll have a standard operating procedure going forward that we can relay to the contractor to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah. And then the other things I wanted to mention, I'll get to the punch list in a second, just cost difference. I can't remember, it's 50 cents on the dollar compared to a mill and fill or something. If you don't have these numbers.
I have it in my presentation, actually.
Perfect. So maybe just, I think for me to go back to the residents of those streets, Chipmunk, Raccoon, Fox Trail, to name a few, I do want to explain, hey, it cost us $300,000 and full mill and fill would have been $600,000 or something. And then the other thing is just the life addition or expectancy. So it's ultimately supposed to, delay us having to do a full mill and fill.
Mm-hmm.
I've explained it as, the base isn't fully deteriorated, but this is kind of putting a finishing coat on it so it can last a little bit longer before we have to make that big investment. I'd like to understand like the average years that it extends it, because I think residents now are thinking, okay, when's this actually just going to be taken all out?
I do touch on that here. Perfect tee up for what my presentation will be. I don't think I have exact numbers, but I can find those. That's great.
All right, great. And then I'll get Daryl specific addresses and locations for the punch list. Hopefully we can add to the DLZ report. I'm very interested to see how their report turns out. If they say, hey, this is how it's supposed to look. Okay, I think we've got some direction for next year on maybe not what to do or
What not to do.
yeah, right. Granville seemed to be actually quite a bit better. And I don't know if that's because it has more traffic or what, or it's exposed to sun. I don't know, but those shorter streets in this particular area definitely seem to have issues. Sorry.
No, that's good. That segues nicely into 2024 street program, because God forbid we not have a street program on the agenda.
Do we need to find?
Stay on it all year.
Right.
Oh, it is full. Okay,
Just
you go.
Other updates every single meeting.
So I put together a presentation here that's probably longer than you would like, but as long as it needs to be, it'll probably take about 15 minutes, but it does answer some of your questions there. And I'm really glad you brought those up. And I'll go over pavement evaluation itself, how it's been done here in the past, and how recommendation ideas on how we may do it in the future, and then talk about preventive maintenance, which is exactly the subject we were just on. And then I'll go into the 2024 program and our OPWC application process. And before I start, I just want to include some metrics so you're aware of what we're all dealing with here. We've got about approximately 84 lane miles of roadway in our community. That's lane miles being, the distance for one lane, distance for other lane are added together to make a lane mile. And this does include the US and state routes, which are a significant component. But it's pretty significant. So that's why it costs close to $1 million a year to take care of it. And we do have some alleys, a multitude of cul-de-sacs, bike and pedestrian trails, which in my experience in many communities are ignored or delayed maintenance or taking care of those. And that's something that I would, and Daryl and I have talked about, that we need to make sure we're maintaining that as well. That is a safety issue as well as a quality of life issue.
We turn Dan's volume up just a slight bit. There's a master volume. Just the standard 10% bumps.
I'm a soft talker.
No, I think it's just the ambient noise.
How's that? That's louder, right?
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank
all right. Street improvement program, this is just a definition. I'll make a disclaimer here. A lot of this comes from a presentation I did in a different community. So there's some cute stuff like these guys standing on his head and that kind of stuff that's in here that I kept in. And there may be a few references to something like sidewalk repairs that may not fully apply here. But anyway, street improvement program is taking care of our street system on a prioritized basis. It does include curb and gutter repair, asphalt overlay, patching, miscellaneous concrete repairs, storm sewer repairs, hopefully bike trail repairs. And these are analyzed yearly by the city engineer and staff, and evaluated. Plans and specs are put together, and in this community typically funded by OPWC, which is fantastic. A lot of communities don't do that. So I want to take just a minute to talk about pavement evaluation. The pavement evaluation has been done very well here. My difficulty with it is it hasn't been a consistent methodology. Being analytical, I like to make sure we use the same methodology year after year. So we're consistent. We're using the same method. We do it the same way. The engineer that does it, if he's not doing it every year, he's educating the one that does do it the next year, so that we have that consistent basis that we can follow. Because it is somewhat qualitative. You can one guy might rate it at 40%, another guy at 60%. So I'd like to formalize that technique over time to kind of give us a better indices, metrics going forward. And the system that I think is well organized, well suited for this community is called PACER. It's Pavement Surface Evaluation and Rating System. It was developed in the University of Wisconsin as it's more simple than some of the other methodology, but it results in just as good results that you've got with the other ones. It doesn't cost you as much. And yeah, I think you all know what evaluation is. We inventory the roads, evaluate the conditions, and then use our data sets to select priorities and our alternative treatments. But what I like about it is it's easy to maintain a long-term database to evaluate treatments. This is just the pavement surface Pacer manual for asphalt roads, and it gives you an indication of what the evaluations are and what needs to be done under different conditions. I'm going to go to the next slide, which is a little bit more clear. So if you're in this 9-10 range, you really don't need to do anything. This would be Millstone through Price Ponds, and the new communities are in place right now. Then when you get down to Vernon Street, you're down in this 2-3 range where you've got to do some significant reconstruction or overlay and some patching. So you do have a large gamut. I will say that I'm very impressed with the way the roads have been maintained in this community. You've put a decent amount of money into it and effort, and it is relatively good. Speaking of Worthington, this is how we evaluate how we keep track of what we've done over there. We have one of these for every year, and we sort of have a sliding presentation where you can go through and see what roads have been done each year, and can keep a good solid database. And we also keep track of what percentage we have at each one of the different levels of evaluation. This was, I think, 2019, and you try to keep in this range right here as much as you can, in the good to fair, or I guess I should go in the other direction, the good to very good range. And you can see Worthington had done pretty well at that. They had the majority of their roads in the 7 range. So you can right in there, you can see that cluster of a large percentage of the roads were from good to very good. And that's how I would guess our roads are as well. So preventive maintenance, this was our discussion, beginning of our discussion earlier. The philosophy is that, I'm going to go to this slide. This graph kind of shows you the performance, how a pavement typically reacts over time. You can see, the first couple of years it kind of decays or deteriorates pretty rapidly, but then it has a pretty flat line from probably year 2 to year 15, where it doesn't deteriorate a whole lot. But then all of a sudden, if you're not maintaining it, it drops very fast. And it drops faster and faster. And as you go down this curve, the cost to repair that pavement becomes significantly more. So in this range, doing preventive maintenance is not real costly. It could be crack sealing, it could be cape sealing, and microsurfing, et cetera. You start going over in here. These are not 2024 numbers, by the way. These are 2019 numbers. But as for reference of scale, about $1 for square foot for rehabilitation when it starts getting to about 17, 18 years. And then after that, it really falls significantly. If you get yourself in this range right here, you're really not being it's not wise use of the community's money. Whether it's cape sealing or any other method, it just doesn't make sense to get that far along. And again, I would compliment the city and how well they've maintained that. When you get in this area right here, you're talking total reconstruction, which is extremely expensive. What are these treatments?
Actually, one question on total reconstruction, because sometimes we use mill and fill, cape seal, total reconstruction. Miller Drive was just a mill and fill, not a total reconstruction.
That's correct.
Right? There was still a base left over.
Correct.
Total reconstruction would be what we had a Miller plus what else?
You tear out that you would remove the rock base,
Right.
the base, and you'd also probably have to go through and repair the under drains, because they'll often fail as well.
Got it.
And that's also very costly. Those are under the curb and you have to take care of those. So yeah, it's basically tearing it out and starting all over again.
Got it.
Is there a point where you'd have to do that anyway, or as long as you keep up with your mill and fills occasionally, that'll last for?
In most cases, unless you have really bad soils and it's pumping and flexing a lot, you have a lot of I can't remember the name for it, but you can see the bumps in it, and you can tell that the water's laying underneath of it, not getting away. And that sometimes can happen because of poor soils or because of bad construction.
Thank you.
So I won't belabor these, but these are some of the ways to take care of surfaces without going into these full expensive approaches. But one thing I'm happy for this city is the crack sealing. That is amazing how much use you can get out of crack sealing, how much it'll maintain if you do it right. If you wait too long or if you overdo it, it's not useful. But if you if you watch and you see, I'll show you a picture of one area where that would be appropriate in the city, but that's really a good process. And I think we should maintain that and keep up with it.
A really basic level, it's just keeping water and other things out so they don't get worse and there's more erosion, right?
Right. The water will get down those cracks, it'll freeze and bring them apart. Then the heat will come and it'll bring it back together, and it just becomes, they start getting really thick. And if you seal them, you keep that from happening. Or you do pretty well. It doesn't completely do away with it. Another process that Mr. Freno, city engineer in the city of Delaware, likes to use is fiber mat. It's put between the layers of the pavement, so it gives it additional flexibility without breaking down. And that and SAMI, which I can't remember what SAMI stands for, but it's a very similar process. He likes to do those. He has very little money, so he's maintaining that. Well, as you know, they're trying to go for another levy to do that. But so again, these are some of the processes. And if somebody continues to do preventive maintenance and learn lessons from what we may not like and what doesn't work well, we'll join these other communities in utilizing preventive maintenance, and they do it for a reason. That's to save money. ODOT contends that they save up to $300 million a year for on using preventive maintenance. And they have a lot of money, but they also save a lot of money. And here's what we talk about, your comparisons of your different types. Cape Seal would be approximately, again, these are older numbers, I think of 2018 numbers, but about $550 per square yard cost. It'll add an additional 8 to 9 years of life to that pavement surface, as opposed to paying $9 or so, which does give you slightly more life, but it's also much more costly. And if you think about going back to, oops, I'm going the wrong direction. Oh, shoot. I should let you drive, Daryl. You think about this curve where it starts to decay, you do preventive maintenance, bring it up to a good surface. It starts to deteriorate again, you bring it back up. And so you're maintaining, a pretty solid curve along here, whereas you're doing reactive maintenance, particularly if you don't do a full reconstruction or a full mill and fill, you'll do that. You'll bring it back up to a good condition, but then it falls more rapidly. It's just the science of the situation. So you save about $4.50 per or about $4 per foot per yard on your costs for cape sealing over mill and pave they've got here, which is significant, $65,000 a mile. Today it would probably be, that number will be significantly more, but so would both of them. Again, I'm a big advocate for this crack seal because it really does save you a lot of effort, extends the pavement a good period of time. You do have to go out every couple of years on some roads, and because the rubber will pull up and decay, but it does work well. Another thing that I would recommend we start doing is a rejuvenator. Typically, after 1 to 2 years after you put the pavement down, you put this rejuvenator on, and it brings the oils back up to the surface, and it maintains a longer life for that pavement. And it's relatively inexpensive. It's spread with it's a liquid. It goes down, and it doesn't create that tacky surface that you refer to with cape sealing.
Kind of weird here for a second, but it's kind of like hand lotion.
Kind of like hand lotion, exactly. That's right. Road lotion.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. A little more expensive, but
Right.
I mean, I can get you a gallon or two of it if you want. You can when the guy that worked with me in Wilmington on this, he was an advocate for doing it every 2 years. I know the city engineer in Marysville does it when he puts the pavement down. I think he does that just for convenience. I think it makes more sense to rejuvenate as opposed to trying to put that in immediately, because he still has to do it 2-3 years later anyway. But that's something we could look into as well and start including in our pavement program. Does that answer your question about the differential in cost?
Yes, and then at some point, have you shared this yet? with this group? Have you shared this presentation yet? I mean, in other words, have you given us access to this yet?
No.
Okay. At some point, can you update the values? So,
Sure.
on the mile cost, square yard?
Will
cost?
do. Yeah.
This is really good information. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. And then, so I'm going out of the preventive maintenance and talking about what we've done in the past and what we'll do in the future. And another disclaimer is I had one of our new guys do this very quickly, and I know it's not exactly right, but it does give you an indication of from 2009 to 2023, what type of what roads we've improved. It doesn't tell you what type of improvement we've done, but you can see the areas we've focused on and areas we haven't focused on, partly because they're newer, of course. But in these older areas, there's pavement's constantly deteriorating.
We've done a lot in the past 3-4 years.
Yes,
A lot.
you really have. It's amazing. I mean, that's really good. And then, yeah, you see from 2018 onward, you've done significantly more than you had in the past.
We had 2 or 3 years in there in a row without OPWC
Right.
grant.
Right. So this, what has been done in the past is a PCR program, pavement condition rating program that was relatively intense, but similar to the PACER program I showed you. And then and this was, I believe, did we say 2018? Robotics came in and did a windshield survey. You can't hardly see it, but basically it's pretty simple. They take an iPhone, drive the roads, and then go back and do an analysis of what they saw. I'm not sure the details of how they know exactly where they are and how they're doing it, but they did come up with some very good information. And I believe it was Mr. Parkinson. They give you a good database of what you get, and I found a spreadsheet that Dave Parkinson had done that was extremely helpful as far as analyzing each individual road with a PCR rating and a cost for repair and rehabilitation. But so this I think is a good thing to do. You don't need to do it every year, but probably maybe every 5 years do a robotic type thing. It's not that expensive. It's maybe 10 grand, somewhere in that range. It's not cheap, but it's also not terribly expensive.
We still have the contract with them, Daryl, do you know? We had a contract with Robotics for a little while.
Yeah, I don't think it's active anymore. I know there was a lot of angst about getting the data at one point.
Yes.
I do think Steve got the data eventually. But yeah, I don't think there's anything active. I'm not, Dana, I doubt you have had any reason to interact with the robotics, but yeah, that's something.
Thank you.
So we had, we came out yesterday and this week and last week and did some evaluation of the pavement conditions now. And of course, you know, see the pictures of bad stuff. You don't get to see the good stuff. But this is examples of some of the types of failures we have. This is called alligator cracking for obvious reasons. But it tends to happen in spots, areas. And so it tends to be with like this, you can see on Fabro. Pavement's bad here, but as you go on down, it's not nearly as bad. So what you would do here is a spot repair, full depth repair, just in this area where my cursor is, and then you'd overlay the entire road as opposed to do a mill fill the entire way. Longitudinal cracking is relatively common, and it tends to go along the entire extent of the roadway, and that leads to a mill and fill. And these are PACER ratings that I've put on the bottom here. Again, qualitative. These are mine. Somebody else might do it slightly different, but they're relatively close. And then Vernon Street, that might be a 1 or a 2, but you can see it's in pretty bad shape. It's got longitudinal cracking. It's got side cracking. It's got slippage cracking. That really is at the very least mill and fill, possibly a full reconstruction of that roadway. And then on middle view, you can see a little bit of slippage right in here. That's that pumping I was referring to earlier that indicates a bad base. So we would do a full depth repair there, take it down below the pavement into the base, repair that section, and then overlay the rest of it. We wouldn't necessarily have to do that entire road, depending on how bad it was. In this case, it does look like it goes pretty far. That might be a total mill and fill. Block cracking, not really that bad, particularly in this case. You can see it happening along the seams here. That is a spot repair and an overlay. And then Cheshire Road, pretty good shape. So now it's a 7. I think it's relatively old. It gets a lot of traffic, but it's maintained pretty good in pretty good condition. I put this in here because it's a great candidate for cracks. And if you get these cracks sealed soon, you can maintain that pavement life and avoid having to repave that road in the too near future. So that I included that slide just to give you a feel for what we look at and how we evaluate it. And then these are the roads we have looked at so far. We didn't get to Sunbury Mills 5. This is Millstone, the Millstone Court area. There's it in Millstone. I forget the names of the roads over there, but we still need to get to that. I also, Daryl, forgot to get Cherry Street on here. That place right by the square where where we had the problems. Okay, I got myself confused where I am here. But anyway, so we looked at all of these roads. And we've done a preliminary evaluation of what we think the Pacer scale is for those. North Miller, I don't think I included a picture on that, but this is just between Cherry Street and Tippett Court. It's rated as a 6, but it's a key intersection that deserves to have some focus on it, and more than just crack sealing. So it'll probably be an overlay there. And then you can see the rest of them. There's the South Vernon and Morning Street are particularly bad. The rest are hovering in that 4, 5, 6 range. Harrison Street, Parkinson's database I looked at indicated it was in poor shape, but we didn't see that. I don't know if maybe it was paved since he did that analysis, but these are the roads that we're currently contemplating doing in 2024. As we continue to evaluate this, and we haven't gone to the point of deciding whether we would recommend cape sealing or microsurfacing or any of those other approaches, but wanted to be sure to show you this. And these numbers here indicate the numbers by the side over here instead of trying to label all those roads. I'll let you digest that for a second. You can see, and I can, as you mentioned, I can provide this to you.
So some of these maybe like we've always looked at, like mill and fill or cape seal or microsurfacing, that those were like the primary options we had. It sounds like we may have even more options that may be more subjective as to like where those solutions can be deployed. Is that you're going to take?
That's definitely true. And a guy named Zach Helm is literally an expert in this area, and I would like to bring him in and have a meeting with you. He contacts me regularly to try to take me to sites, and I rarely go, but I don't have time. But he can give us some really good advice on what we could do. Of course, he'll want to bid it when he gets to it, but that's good. Yes, we'd have plenty of options, and I'd like to do that in a scientific manner, not guessing.
What scale, like on the rejuvenator you were talking about earlier? What number would you look at to start implementing?
Oh, rejuvenator is really to put on newer pavement shortly after it's put down to keep it in good shape, to maintain that life for a longer period of time. So honestly, it would be none of these. It would be some of these like Greenville that we just paved. Next year, put some rejuvenator down on that to make it last, instead of 15 years, make it last 20 years.
2 to 3 year cycle on that.
Right. Yeah. So
You do the rejuvenator once. Does it only work once?
you can do it as long as the pavement stays relatively intact. You can continue to do it every other year as long as it stays good. It's a little bit of a judgment call, but you don't just to do it once. You can continue to do it over time. These are the roads. Mr. Hall and I were talking today about, in order to increase our chances with OPWC plus get some good stuff done, what we might add to this other than roadway paving. And we've talked about traffic calming. Sunbury Meadows traffic calming, that could be a part of the OPWC application, as well as if we decide to pull the trigger on the General Rosecrans Elementary crosswalk. And those would help us score a little bit higher because they're safety oriented. And Wes's idea. Can't take credit for it, but I think that would be a good approach to do if you'll agree. and to add those in to help boost our scores just a little bit and also get them funded. And there's a couple other items, this Greenbrier drainage trench that was put in, we probably need to repair that. And we're at Morning Street, there's a problem with the storm sewer right here. You can see over time this pavement, this pavement has gotten so thick that there's no curb anymore. And that catch basin doesn't really work. So the water kind of flows down here, goes around, and it goes right through that yard right down there. And it also comes from the north. So this would be a good candidate for repairing this and possibly installing a trench drain along here to capture some of that water that we can't capture in that catch basin and the catch basin over on the other side. So those are ideas that we thought we might add in addition to the typical street paving. And I don't know if that catch basin, Adam Wrinkle was looking at repairing that catch basin with Dustin over at Middleview. I don't know if that ever got.
Yeah, I'll confirm. We did get a price from Strasser to do one other storm drain that Dan is referencing, but I'm not sure if they complete that project this year or not. So if they don't, we'll add it to next
If
year.
we don't, it would be, and Dustin had a really good idea on how to fix it. And I think we can add that to here. It's really not that costly. So setting that aside, OPWC doesn't have to be a roadway application if you decided to do something else. I didn't honestly have any real good ideas other than rehabilitating the Prairie Run sewer because it has a lot of infiltration and inflow. It would be a good project. The problem is we don't really have enough information, in my opinion, to stick it in there because we'd have to CCTV it, clean it, evaluate it before it could really come up with a true cost. There's something that we can hang our hat on and provide it for funding to them. But if you have other ideas, if you decide to go another route, let me know. But this is the timeline, and we have until November 3rd to make our application. So we don't have a whole lot of time. But if you come up with, I guess what I'm asking is how you prefer I proceed. Number one, or do we want to stick with roads? And if we're going to stick with roads, how would you prefer I evaluate this with staff as far as picking them, or who wants to be involved with that decision-making process?
Probably Damon, me, Dana, Daryl.
Well, I'll set a meeting for probably about 2 weeks from now. We'll put some information together and we'll get us together as a group and we'll evaluate.
We have one more services meeting before that, but
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
at the deadline. So
Right.
we need to. As always, you'll do your best work in short order.
Yeah, we'll get her done. I mean, we will need to get a somewhere in that time frame. We'll also need to get a resolution to allow you to show that you're allowing us to make the application for some.
I'm just gotta say this on record, like my highest focus right now is we get free money. So
Yeah.
like we've got to get the grant.
Yeah.
Because the whole program doesn't work as a program if we can't like figure out how to accomplish getting that.
Understood. And that's so I thought Wes's idea about adding those safety features to that was a good thing to help us out a little bit.
Yep, that's really good. I appreciate the data oriented approach, big time, and preventative maintenance. I'm a huge fan of preventative maintenance. Better do it ahead of time than fix it when it's broken later. So I appreciate that entire approach. I look forward to seeing what we come up with. Yeah.
Thank you. And at the same time, we want to make sure we do it right and not make the citizens angry or not create a product that's not good. And maybe there's some places where it's just not appropriate to do that because it's too constricted with homeowners living nearby and constant traffic up and down the road. So we'll evaluate that as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we've got the fall leaf collection program.
Yeah, so just a few updates. We do have in the packet the fall leaf schedule. It's on packet page 9. So we are a little less than 2 weeks away from that program starting. And so you can see it basically follows the same format that we've used in the past, 4 quadrants of the city. you know, and the dates are noted there. We have highlighted the dates that where those are holidays, trying to, as best we can, to kind of accommodate that section if we're not there as quickly as we possibly can to kind of keep the schedule moving. So that said, you know, we'll monitor the leaf drop, and you know, if we need a little bit more time at the end, we can certainly do that. I think in the past we have continued the program maybe a couple 3 days after the official schedule, just to get any last set of leaves. The other thing that's important to note, though, we will quickly follow the leaf cleanup program with the second street sweeping as well. So we're trying to do that, you know, before the weather turns too cold for them to be able to come out and do that. So that's a little bit of a tricky scheduling process, but we do have, that's at least the way it's set up to work this year. So just want to let you know what the leaf program schedule looks like.
All right, thank you. Getting into other updates here, we're running a little light on time, so I want to try to shoot through them. We've got the municipal building, police station renovations.
Yeah, so for the benefit of the entire group, just want to let you know that we do have a schedule now from the contractor in terms of when they'll begin the demolition. That is October 30th. So we've got some movement that needs to happen between now and then. So the plan is that we'll move the police department out of the lower level of the municipal building and down to the round top. We've talked to the IT folks. They can set it up to accommodate that as a temporary command center down there. So the plan is that we would begin to move the police department the week of October 16th. What that involves is moving some of the furniture out of the basement, but all of the furniture out of the first floor of the municipal building, because basically we'll take that furniture down there and they'll use that furniture. Once they vacated the building, the administrative staff will move down into the basement and basically use the furniture that's left behind at that point. We probably got more furniture than we're going to need. So we are working through the details of where to store that over the 6-7 month window that the renovation will occur. And so that's roughly the schedule, and that's the way the staff is going to be moving. We did in a conversation with the police department, they did indicate we'll move the mayor's courts team actually over to the second floor of this building. They'll take the second half of the space down here on the second floor. So we'll have staff in those 3 spaces. Yeah. Any questions? If you've got questions, let me know. But otherwise, that's just want to give you a sense of the high level process.
All right. Sunbury Estates trees.
So on this, just wanted to note that I have included in the packet. It didn't print out 100% perfect. It's packet page 11. We have communicated the plan to the citizens of Sunbury Estates. That's the plan starting on page 2. It's in the form of a survey document as well, but basically all it does is it tells them what the plan is in terms of the tree replacement. We're focused on the roughly the 30 worst offending trees. Those are the ones that have heaved the sidewalk 2 or more inches. But it does have an opportunity for them to provide one more round of feedback to us on the plan itself, so that as we get ready to implement it in early 2024, we'll have that feedback from them. So Alyssa we'll go out and mark the trees again. So we've got we'll do that in the spring, so that we've got a clear sense of which trees are going to be replaced. And then we'll communicate via a flyer drop at those properties and a letter to the property owner that theirs is one of those trees that's scheduled to be removed and the sidewalk repaired. So.
Okay. Traffic calming is next up.
And so kind of similar to what I just said about Sunbury Estate trees, packet page 19, I just pulled 2 pages that summarize the results of what we've learned or what we learned from the community regarding Sunbury Meadows Drive. The working group is still working through a final plan on this, but I thought it was important for this group to know In total, we got 302 responses to the survey, 142 of them completed it. And what's on packet page 21 just gives you the snapshot of the preferred option coming from the group of those who completed the survey. So we're working on an option that's focused on the parking option, but it's not 100% of what was proposed to the community because we've heard their feedback and we're trying to incorporate that into a plan. So there'll be more communication on that, but just wanted to let you know that that's where that is.
All right, and then do we have updates on Reservoir Park?
The dam project, it's.
Yeah, the dam project.
We had a pre-bid, scheduled a pre-bid meeting for last week. It was not mandatory. And they took that at its heart. Nobody showed up. So we concerned us a little bit. So we extended the bid date. And then we did a sort of a blast email to about 20 contractors that may or may not have picked up the plans. But we did, since then, today, in fact, I got calls from 3 different contractors. So I think I'm assured that we'll have some bids, and those will be, we extended the bid date until Monday. So we'll get those in on Monday, and we'll get those bid tabulation to you as soon as we get it.
All right, do we have anything else for good of the group? Any questions from committee? All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Neff. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Capel?
Yes?
Mr. Neff?
Yes.
Mayor St. John?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
4 yeas, we are adjourned.
Thank you.